Welcome back to another message crawler update. Today, let's talk about installing and configuring the application. Now, I know this is not the most exciting topic ever, but there's some interesting things I want to talk about and show you where the user settings are stored in case you mess things up on your screen and break everything, how you can restore it. And we'll also talk about how to configure your databases. So let's go to my screen and talk about that. All right, so I have a computer here and I have an installation of message crawler. So what I'm going to do is just going to run it, and I'm going to do all the next kind of installation, just run through it. But before we let the installer run, let's go to one location that is a little bit special, that stores user settings. So it's going to be users, your username, app data, roaming, hashtag legal, message crawler 100. All right, so we're going to keep an eye on this location. We're going to run the installer, do all the next. That's fine. And the installer is going to write files to this location that will be modified as you use the application. So why does that happen? There are two things that are happening. One is there is this DLL file. So this is a dynamic DLL file that gets built when the application sort of compiles. It's a little weird, but the way this application version 7 structure is a little different from 6. The second thing that you have here is this XML file, and this is where the user interface is stored. So if someone moved things around, or like the windows went all crazy, or you just want to preserve your own custom settings, you can save this file here and you can reuse it. Now, I can't promise you it's going to work from version to version, like especially if I do major updates, but you can save it and maybe different users can have their own sort of preference file. So this is what gets stored to the user data folder, because you are not allowed to write, or in the most restrictive environments, you're not allowed to write to program files. So the running application cannot write there. So it needs a shared location to do so, which is this location. All right, now that we installed Message Crawler 7, let's run it. Now, when you run it, it's probably going to come up with an open blank window like this. This is called Database Manager. So instead of just going to a server and sort of clicking on a database, we have sort of a better way to organize ourselves. We have a little like list of cases of database we're working on. This way you don't have to browse all over the place to find them. So we have like a case manager here. Now, first thing we're going to do is create a new file where we're going to store this. So I can put this on a desktop. I can call it my connections SQLite. This is going to be a small SQLite database, which is right here. And all it's going to do is just keep list of databases or cases you are working with. So now that we see database in the header, we can say add. Quickly going through the options. We have options of Microsoft SQL. This is what you should be using for pretty much everything. So this is something that known to work. It's industry standard. Everyone uses it. This is like a proper database to use. MySQL, this is something I'm working with in testing for people on a budget. So if you have like a small company, or you don't have a budget for proper SQL server, MySQL can work. I did see few issues in rare cases with some extended Unicode characters where MySQL didn't like it, but otherwise it works fine. The way it's different from MySQL is it doesn't cache data as much. So MySQL is very disk IO intensive versus Microsoft SQL. Microsoft SQL likes to keep things in memory and then write them down to disk when needed. MySQL isn't configured that way. I know you can configure it to cache way more data, which will probably make it more performant, but I don't have experience with that just yet. So that's the other option. And the third option, just like in the last version, we have SQLite. SQLite does work okay, but it does not work well for multi-threaded operation. It's not really designed for that. Also, if you are going to be using SQLite, you should store the database file on extremely fast drive. Do not put it on a network drive. It should be your SSD drive in your local computer. And therefore, SQLite isn't really great for sharing with others. Different people have different setups, so your experience may differ. All right, I'm going to go to Microsoft SQL, and let me just see what databases I have. So my server is HTL3, and I have this demo database. So let's do this. Demo HTL03, and this is my database. And I'm going to do trusted connection. You can specify SQL username and password, and this data does get encrypted, but it's very kind of light encryption. So this is the best way to go. Just use the trusted connection and keep security set up on the server. So I'm going to hit save, and now I have my database here on the list. If you need to create a new database, you just enter the database name. It doesn't have to exist on the server, so message crawler will create it for you whenever you press the select. And press and select will open message crawler, and it will take you to that database and show you data, and you can work with your data and do whatever you need to do. However, once you are in message crawler, there are going to be a couple of ways you can get back to that screen. So here we have data. Now, if you want to open another database, you have two options here in tools. They're probably going to move somewhere. There's open database and open in a new window. So open will close the message crawler and will pop up with a database selector, or open in a new window will allow you to open multiple instances of message crawler, so you could work on multiple databases at the same time. Cannot say that's a recommended workflow. If you need to look at something, that is totally fine, but you shouldn't be running jobs in multiple instances at the same time, because that may cause issues. So last thing to look at is our connection or database manager. What do these different things do? Well, we have a select button that either opens or creates a database. 3 dots is for edit, so you can go in and modify your changes here. X will delete the record. It's not going to delete database from the server, and it's not going to delete any files. It's just going to delete record from this SQLite database. That's all it's going to do. And clone looks just like edit, where it's once you hit save. So let's say we have database 2, we hit save, and now we've duplicated a record with a different database name. So if you want to make a new database, the easiest thing to do is to clone the record, and then when you click on select, the database will be created. Other metadata fields kind of explanatory. You have connection name, that's how you can describe it. SQL is your connection type, server name, and database name. And if you right click here, you can do column chooser, and you can select columns that you want to see. And so finally, just to kind of demo it to you, so if you press select on a database that is not there, we can click on that, and it's going to go through the process of creating it. So this step may take a little bit longer because we are building a new database, and things will depend on how fast things communicate and so on. And once it is done, we should see a new database here, which we're not seeing yet. Oh, there you go. So a database was created, and now it's going to open up. Actually, the last thing before we finish this is talking about this XML file a little bit more. So you see how all the tabs here are open. If we are to close them and reopen message crawler, well, it will remember what you had closed, what you had open, what fields you had here. If you move things around, that is the information that's going to get written to this file. So it's 838. If we close this, it should update. There you go, 840. So as you close the application, it writes information here. If there's a particular way you like to set up everything, you can configure it, save this file, keep it somewhere, share it with your coworkers, and then when you replace it and the new version comes out or something like that, you can replace it and you can go back to having everything the same. And again, this just deals with the layout, not the actual objects inside. So your jobs and all that stuff for settings, that's not saved there. It's just the look and feel of the application. All right, well, I hope you found installing and configuring Message Crawler exciting. Thank you for checking out this update, and I will see you on another.